Salute Mel Knight Sports in the building. So we saw a very good card. Um, UFC 300. We saw Alex Pereira take on former champion Jamal Hill. Brutally knocks him out in the first round after setting up a monstrous left hand in the southpaw stance. You know, and we know he has the power. The guy has done some serious damage to former foes, and the question doesn't need to be asked anymore. He has the power. I mean, I don't know why dudes go in there and try to step to him. We know what works really well, and uh, it'll be wrestling. Jan had a close match with him, though I did think Alex Pereira did win. It was a close fight. He did, and Jan didn't get knocked out, right? He was able to get to the last round, and it was a good, um, close close decision, right? But I hear a lot of people saying now that because Alex Pereira defeats Jamal Hill and his past opponents, that he is now above uh, Izzy Adesanya, and I have to say that is absolute cap. In no way, shape, or form does Alex Pereira defeating. People like to say, "Oh, he came and he defeated a bunch of champions." Okay, let's look at this for a second. All right, he comes, beats Adesanya, great win. No one can take that away from him. Then he comes back, gets brutally knocked out. Okay, and let's also rewind. He almost gets stopped in that first fight. In that technically the third fight, but the first fight in the UFC, he almost gets stopped and gets saved by the bell again. He has gotten saved by the bell multiple times. Anyways, but he stops Adesanya in the fifth round. No one could take that away from him. Great win, right? Um, then he comes back as a rematch, gets brutally knocked out in the second match, in the rematch, right? Brutally knocked out. Then he goes, moves up, fights. Who does he fight? I think if he fights Jan, he beats Jan, right? Um, in a close match, like I said, good win, good win. You know, beats the guy that beat Adesanya, which is one of the best fighters in the UFC. Then he goes and defeats, um, and then he goes and defeats what's the kid's name? Yuri. Now, and this is where my issue comes in. Now, people are counting Yuri and Jamal Hill as great wins, and they are. They are great wins, right? But now they're saying because he beat them and because they were champions, okay, um, he has now surpassed Izzy Adesanya. First of all, Yuri did not even defend his belt. He won the belt. It was a vacant belt, right? It was a vacant belt, and he fought a 40 plus man in Glover Teixeira. Great, obviously great win, great opponent, right? But he almost lost that fight. Okay. Then he vacates that fight. Then he vacates that belt. He never defended it. Never defended the belt, not one time. Yes, he's still a champion. No one could take that away from him. But was he a dominant champion? Right? Was he going through was he running through guys multiple times? Was he running through the the division multiple times? No. Then you have Jamal Hill. Wins the belt fighting the older version of Glover, right? Then vacates the belt right away due to injury. Cool. Never defended the belt. Didn't go through the division twice. Didn't do no laps, right? So I'm confused on where people are saying that Alex Pereira is ahead of Izzy because he defeated Yuri and Jamal. I mean, those are good wins, but They were champion for literally a second. They never defended their belt. They never not once defended their belt. You know, they weren't dominant champions. And then he defeats also Sean Strickland years prior, right? And now people are giving him credit because Sean Strickland later on did defeat Izzy Adesanya. You know, cool. Sean also never defended his belt. These are all dudes that won the belt, lost it right after. These are dudes that didn't defend their belt. These are dudes that were not uh dominant champions. You know what I'm saying? Izzy went through his division twice. He did a lap. You know how much rematches this guy have? You know how hard it is to defeat a fighter twice, right? It's a hard thing to do. They know what you're bringing to the table. They know what strengths you have, and they're training to exploit them. And if you still beat them the second time over, the third time over, it's a tough thing to do, right? Now, Izzy fought Alex Pereira in a different sport twice. First time he fights, Pereira gets saved by the bell and wins a decision, which people thought that he actually lost that fight. Then he fights in the second fight, and Izzy gets knocked out, right? Then comes to the UFC, gets saved by the bell again. Again, he didn't cheat or anything like that. I'm not saying that, I'm not taking anything away, but he did almost get, what I'm saying, he almost got knocked out multiple times in their three fights, right? But he gets saved by the bell. No one's fault, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's just what happens. You have a certain amount of time. All right. Then he comes back, defeats Adesanya in the UFC, and then gets brutally knocked out in the fourth fight. So again, people are giving him credit for defeating dudes that never defended their belt not one time. They were champion for literally a second, just enough to call them a champion, so that you could put it on his belt. Great. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's a tremendous talent. He's monstrous power. Um, but the fact that people are now saying that he is higher than Izzy, that's not true. Not true in any way, shape, or form. Izzy Adesanya is a Hall of Famer. And Alex Pereira is probably a Hall of Famer as well, right? I'm not saying he's not, but he's not above Izzy. No, not at all. Not at all. You gotta be beating dudes that were dominant champions. We're running through the division. You got to beat the man, to beat the man, to beat the man. At the end of the day, and you know two of the champions that he fought beat a old Glover Teixeira. I mean, nothing. No slight to Glover, but he was an older guy. He was above 40 years old. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he was a tough guy. He was real tough. You know, but at the end of the day, like these guys just beat an old man to get the champion, and then didn't even defend it. So I find it, I can't put Alex ahead of him. I can't, unless he goes up there and beats John Jones. Then we could talk. Maybe. Then we could talk. Maybe, because even then, John Jones is old. He's an older gentleman now. So we gotta stop with this nonsense. Once people see the knockouts, they get enamored and they get excited and they're ready to write you off. Um, but at the end of the day, Alex has losses as well. His first fight in the UFC was a loss. You know, um, we've been riding with Izzy the whole time, and he's just starting to lose, which is why it's such a big thing for us because we're not used to seeing it. But Alex has lost before. You know what I'm saying? And we just weren't watching. We just weren't watching. So obviously now he's probably in his prime or whatever, and everyone's enamored with it. But nonetheless, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hit that bell icon to get more notifications. Mountain Light Sports,